Hello all, it's Melinda, and I want to apologize right off the beginning that my voiceover I'm talking about with my hands right now got corrupted, and so I'm doing this as a voiceover. So my hands are going to be doing things that I'm not going to be talking about at the same time, so forgive me. This is the start of our collaboration with Eileen Scrapmazing doing the June page map sketch releases, and this is the one we're going to do today, and I will link her YouTube channel below, and I'll also send you a link to page maps. This is the sketch, and I'm probably explaining exactly why it was difficult for me, because Becky uses lots of papers in her sketches, and I tend to use a few pen and papers and lots of mixed media. It took me about an hour to pull papers to go with this layout, and I struggled with it a lot. And I didn't make you watch me do that because that literally took way too long. But I did decide that I'm going to go with one photo and much more journaling. So I'm going to cut out one of the pattern papers, and even after I picked all these papers, I do end up changing one out because I didn't like it. I am also going to cut out the banner in this one. The banner gives a more celebratory tone to the layout, and the topic I'm going to discuss isn't one of celebration or really happiness. This is a picture of my father when he was late teens, early 20s. My father died when I was 15 from diabetes, and this is kind of the topic I want to talk about. So this is the one picture I'm going to use, and I'm going to pretty much lay everything out just like it is on the sketch. I'm not going to turn it, twist it, rotate it, anything. I do find that when I do a difficult subject, I like to use a sketch, and I like to just keep it exactly how it is and not really try to do anything different with it. It makes the layout go much faster for me, even through the difficult parts. Now we're going to speed you up and start the layout process. I'm going to start by cutting the picture, and I left it exactly the same size as what the sketch called for, like 3.5 by 5 with a little bit of a white border. I do end up adding an extra border around the picture. This is just black cardstock, and I decided to go with the black in the background. And even though this paper here has bright colors to it, they're kind of raindrops, which reminded me of tears. And I'm not sure how long I want it, so I'm going to leave it long. This is a Scraptastic page from a long time ago. And I started out by ripping it, but I wanted to get to, it has a white border around the whole layout, and I wanted it to be no white border on two sides, so I had to cut down to it. I'm going to cut this roughly 9 by 8. So this is going to just be the big square in the background. I'm not even sure that I'm cutting this square. I was just kind of folding it along the ruler where I thought it needed. I just keep putting it right exactly how I had it on the sketch. And that's kind of how I make sure everything's fitting right. Is just keep putting it there. Now this is the white cardstock that I thought was going to be the big white square in the background. And I cut it to size and everything, and I leave it there for a bit. But once I get the lined paper on there, I really didn't like the white on white. This is just a scrap of paper I had, and I cut it this way, and then once I get the line paper on there, I don't like the lines going the same direction, so I end up flipping it and adding a piece to it to make those lines horizontal. This paper is from my mini sketch, or my mini kit that I'm doing with Sarah Scraps. And this is where I have to kind of jerry rig it together to make it a square because it was a triangle piece. Just so it has a border around it. What I don't like about this paper is that it has a pink line kind of in the middle of where I'm going to do my journaling, and that's going to be distracting, in my opinion. So I'm going to piece this together so that it does not have that line. I'm trying to figure out how far out I want it to go. I'm going to cut it close to that pink line, and then I'm going to use my EK Success notebook punch to make it look like a notebook rip out, just like in the sketch. I'm going to fold it up a little bit, ruffle it up, and see that line right there? That just bothered me. So I got another piece, the other piece of that. I'm going to flip it around, and I'm just going to glue it there so it lines up. Now you can see that there's a line there, another piece of paper there. I'm okay with that. And in the end, I'm going to have even another line because I added one more line to my journaling and needed more space. I'm deciding that in the sketch there is like ruffles, like a scalloped edge on two spots, that I'm going to use orange washi tape, and I'm going to rip it for those two spots. I'm trying out two to see if it matches the orange in the teardrop / raindrops. And this is kind of where I'm looking at that white and thinking, I don't necessarily like the white on white. I'm going to keep going down this road for a little bit before I try to find a gray to swap it out. And I'm basing a gray based off the colors in the raindrops and in the striped paper around it. I'm just pulling out of my gray drawer that has different gray papers in it. I try to stripe a pattern. Too many patterns were driving me nuts. So I kept pulling patterns out and going, it's just too many patterns. It's distracting me. I needed more of a solid, model-y type of gray paper. So I'm going to cut this one out. It's just from a paper pad. I cut the edges off to make it work. And I'm just going to trim it to the size I had the white one because that seemed to work with the scissors. Just easy peasy. And it ends up being a pretty close match to the gray in the paper I have framing around the photo. I'm going to be lazy and just staple as much of this as I can to keep it together. I know I want to do some sewing and I wasn't sure where. And then I thought this is crooked, so I messed with it a little bit. It's probably the fact that I did not cut it square that made me think that it's crooked. So I'm going to do a little gluing now. And I'm going to stitch along the top, just like in the sketch. And I'm going to rip this washi tape down the center. And it doesn't rip very nicely down the center for me. So I'm going to use both those pieces to kind of layer it up. I'm just going to lay the other part over it. And just stick it down there, right on the edge of the paper. And I'm going to do it again down here. But this one I'm going to try to rip better. And it gets tangled on itself. This is not my favorite thing to do. And I'm going to lay it down exactly where the gray paper meets the minty paper. And I'm going to stitch across it. At least that's what I'm planning on doing. But first I'm going to get orange letter stickers. These are jelly bean soup. And so there's a subtitle on the sketch, and this is going to be my subtitle, and it's going to say haunts me, and that's going to go somewhere down there. At this point I'm unsure of where it's going to look best. I struggled with where to put that, whether to put it on the gray or not, and ultimately it does not go on top of the gray. But I kind of leave it on the wax paper until I figure it out. I just move it back and forth. An October afternoon daily flash in the same orange will be the big title, and it's going to say diabetes. I had to Google it, so I made sure I spelled it right. And again, I'm going to leave that on the wax paper. I'm going to turn the wax paper up so it's as small as it can be so I can really see what it's going to look like. And move it back and forth. Do my journaling and then come back to it. This is where I went and stitched over top of the orange washi tape and the bottom. I'm going to trim all the strings. I decide that I want this to be raised up, so the photo is raised up. Just going to get some adhesive fun foam. There is no splashes or splatters or any ink whatsoever on here, which surprises me. So I'm going to start out with pencil, and I'm going to go really fast on this because it's a lot of writing. But I always start out in pencil. I write it out, and then I erase. I go over it with my journaling markers, and I then erase it all totally. And I'm going to read it to you now. Dad was diagnosed at the age of 12. He lived with it and struggled with it for 25 years. His high sugar damaged his kidneys and took both his legs. I have vivid memories of this disease's evil ways. I get tested every year. Last fall, Brent called me and broke the news to me that he too had diabetes. I cried for hours, remembering all the horror it causes. How I have more fear. Now I have more fear for my children. I have seen the sadness it leaves behind. And then the date. That was something that was hard for me to write, and my brother being diagnosed with it kind of brought this all up last fall. And I just, at the time, couldn't put it down into words. So it took me this long to really figure out what I want to say. And like I said, I had an extra line that I needed to write in there. So I had to cut an extra piece and punch it and all that stuff and glue it down. Now I did make a mistake in some of the journaling, so I'm going to fix that right now with a little scrap of paper that matches it. I had a saw instead of scene, so I'm just going to fix that. And that is noticeable on my layout, but I'm okay with that. And then just finish off the journaling. Sorry about my head. And that's where it ends up laying. I really like it underneath the haunts me. I really like it underneath the orange. That really looks nice to me. So I'm going to commit to that. I just basically bounced these on top of the journaling square. I figured they looked the best there. And these ones, the ripped paper just kind of goes up right there, and these fit just perfectly. So I thought maybe it was going to be the perfect spot for it. Some of them needed to be extra glued down. Fold these papers up just a little bit, and then I realized that probably having a little extra fun foam underneath some of the edges will give it a little more dimension, because the layout really is very flat. Even with all the layers, it's very flat. I do more ruffly and whatnots. And I'm going to slow it down and show you some live close-ups. I'll bring the sketch over so you can see them together. So there's the sketch. And here's my layout. There'll be some still shots at the end. And I will also, like I said earlier, link Eileen's channel below, and also a link to page maps so you can see all the sketches. And I'll be back on Sunday with the next sketch. Thank you. Bye.